How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Down podcast, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, we are back with another mock draft. We've been uploading inconsistently all offseason. A lot going on with school, a lot going on in life. And Parth and I both are in college, so a lot going on. I know we'll be more consistent once the summer rolls around. But, for now, we're going to get you guys videos when we can, and we're definitely going to get you guys some videos leading up to this NFL draft. So welcome back to the show. I am your host, Chris Maltby. Today, I am joined by my co-host, Parth Shaw, Mock Draft 3.0. Parth, I'm sure we're going to put a couple more of these out later this week. But how's it going? How have you been?
Doing pretty good. It's been a while since we've recorded, obviously. It's been a busy couple of weeks. The midterms were like 2 weeks ago, and then it's a quick turnaround. Like finals are next week. It's been a really weird school year. Everything's just like super bunched up because they tried to make it short on us and stuff like that. So it's been tough. But here we are, just trying to get some videos out for you guys, and hopefully a lot more, especially this week because the draft is 4 days away. I'm excited. This Thursday. Let's see what Ryan Pace and the crew have in mind.
Yeah, it should be really interesting to see what the Bears decide to do on Thursday, and we're here to break it down today. I mean, there is a ton to talk about, and I'm sure we're going to be live streaming for the draft, like we have, I believe, in the previous 2 years. As we get rolling into summer, obviously, our uploading will get more consistent. But, let's hop right into this. Parth, I'm going to start with you because you had an interesting situation. You traded up in your draft. That's something you envisioned that the Bears are going to do in just a couple of days here on Thursday. So take us through that trade and talk about your first pick.
Yeah, I really did expect the Bears to trade. I think this was going to happen. I have us trading to the Chargers, I believe, the 13th pick. We give up our 20th pick, a future third, and and this year's fourth. PFF let that trade work, so I'm taking that trade. With that pick, I take Mac Jones. Really obvious pick there. All the other quarterbacks that I wanted, like Justin Fields or Trey Lance, were taken. I think the Panthers took Trey Lance, and then some other team took Fields. I think it was the 49ers. And then Mac Jones is available at 13. I wanted him. I think the Patriots were going to take him at 15. If not, the Washington football team usually takes a quarterback at 19, and I wouldn't be surprised if they took Mac Jones. I think the Bears need a quarterback this year, and Mac Jones there made the most sense. In college, he had 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He did everything. He won the national championship. Played it really well in those 2 games, the semifinal and the final. Yes, he did have a lot of good talent around him. I think that's the only concern. But the thing is that I'm not too worried about that, especially because Andy Dalton cannot be the trusted quarterback going into the season, in my opinion. I think Mac Jones at least brings us some type of something to keep us more competitive, a lot more fun to watch the Bears at, and I just think it makes the most sense trading up there and trying to get the guy who you want.
Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense. Mac Jones, rumored right now to be someone who might go 3 overall, as Parth leads the screen, to the San Francisco 49ers. That's going to be an interesting one as well to see how Justin Fields, Trey Lance, all those guys play out. But it seems like depending on what the Bears do, someone could fall to them. If someone falls to them, who knows? Will the McCaskies let them trade up? Do they have the draft capital that they want to trade up? Are they comfortable with giving up picks because they're going to have to give up a lot of future picks in order to get up in the top 10? So it depends on if the Bears are interested in the situation or not. But it should be interesting moving forward to see what they can do. I'm not entirely sure Mac Jones will be there. It seems like a lot of people think he's going 3rd overall to Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. But it should be interesting to see what happens with him and whether or not the Bears end up trading up for a quarterback. So in my mock, I ended up sticking at 20. Going with an offensive tackle here, a pretty popular one as well, Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. I think he makes sense. He's the plug-and-play type of guy that the Bears need at tackle. And for me, that just about adds up. He's someone that you can swing to right or left tackle. He'll be able to come into Chicago immediately, put up play at high production, and be able to step in and do some pretty big things. So if the Bears don't go quarterback first round, I do think the other two positions they're probably going to need to address, maybe wide receiver. And I know Parth and I will get into that just a little bit later. But, Allen Robinson is still around for 2021, so maybe that's something they can put off until next year. But wide receiver and offensive line are going to be the two huge ones. I think Ryan Pace attacks the offense in this upcoming draft, and I would love to see him take Tevin Jenkins in the first round, if not a quarterback. So I went with Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. That'll do it for our first round. Parth, let's head into round two now. Pick 53 overall, I believe. We both went wide receiver here. I kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, so let us know what you got.
I took Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. I think he's a really good player. He's 5'9". That's like the only concern he has, in my opinion. I think his height is the only thing that's concerning. But he weighs 185. He plays tough for his height. He's projected to go in first or second round. I would not be surprised if a team, took him in the first round because of his speed and his toughness. He plays tough, despite even being 5'9". He put up some big numbers throughout college. In 2018, he only had 37 receptions, but put up 407 yards still, and 2 touchdowns. In 2019, he got more playing time, so he had 67 receptions for 850 yards. And then in 2020, this year, 86 receptions for almost 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, 14 yards per reception. He's done really well, and he can play all 3 positions. He can play in the slot, and he can play out wide. I would love to see him out in the slot with the Bears, especially if we were gonna, move on from Anthony Miller. And so I think that would make the most sense for the Bears to bring in a guy like Elijah Moore, who's a burner, can play the slot really well, and he's had some good production.
Yeah, absolutely. And for my second round pick, I went with another wide receiver named Moore, someone we're a little bit more familiar with up here in Indiana. Rondale Moore, a 5'9" receiver as well, someone who is a speed demon. We saw him burst onto the scene in 2018 with the Purdue Boilermakers, 1,258 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. He had 11 yards per catch, and throughout his years at Purdue, his 3 seasons, he had over 10 yards per catch in every season. I think adding someone like him in the mix, replacing an Anthony Miller, someone who the Bears have been rumored they're looking to shop him, and it seems like that could happen probably on draft day if the Bears end up moving Miller. I think Rondale Moore is someone that you could bring in that would be great alongside Allen Robinson, as well as obviously the speedy Darnell Mooney. Just puts a couple more threats in the backfield for the Bears. So that's definitely something I would love to see the Bears end up doing. Once again, I'm not essentially sold on them needing to go for a wide receiver now. But I think it's something they could afford to do. Once again, it all depends on what they do in that first round. If they trade up, if they sit where they are, if they possibly trade back. We've heard rumors of that as well. There's a lot of smoke going around right now. So, but I think Rondale Moore as well as Elijah Moore, both of them will be great quality picks in that second round, and players that could really take off in Chicago alongside some other good receivers. So let's head into the third round now. Parth, your first 2 picks, you attacked a quarterback as well as a receiving option, but now you start heading into looking in the third and fourth rounds for a couple of, offensive lineman pieces that possibly could come into Chicago and make some sort of a change. So this is pick number 83, I believe. What do you got here?
I need to pull up the thing real quick.
I've got his name for you right here if you need it.
Yeah,
Ben Cleveland.
Ben Cleveland. I'm trying to pull up his notes from my
guard out of Georgia.
Georgia, yep. 6'6", 335 pounds. He had a really good year this year, I'd say. He's got a lot of raw power. One of those weaknesses is called blocking on the move. I think he can work that. He played a lot of guard there. I think that's where he played most of his snaps throughout his 3 years. But this whole Bears offensive line is pretty versatile. You can find a spot for him, either if that's at guard, then you move someone else to offensive tackle. I think these guys are pretty versatile on this offensive line. And when they usually come into the league, they usually experiment, at tackle, guard during, practices and stuff. So I think he'll find his time to find his position on this offensive line. He's very talented, especially playing in Georgia. He was their best offensive lineman this year. So I think he allowed 0 sacks the 3 years he was playing offensive line there. Only 1 hit this year. That was his only hit his whole career, and 5 hurries. So the dude is an absolute beast. I think if we can get him in the third round, it'd be an absolute steal.
Yeah, definitely would be a solid pick, and we've seen Ryan Pace nail picks in rounds 2 to 4, honestly 2 to 7 for
Yeah.
quite a long time. That first round is always the one where he seems to mess it up or make some of his worst picks. Now, this is an interesting one. Kellen Mond was available for me here. I figured with the 83rd overall pick, that would be an incredible pick. And it should be interesting to see how the quarterbacks that go after the first round play out this year. You got David Mills out of Stanford, someone who's gained a ton of more attention the last couple of weeks, as well as Mon. And then someone else who's interesting, who I have been a supporter of, even though he didn't finish out his season too well, is Kyle Trask. So I think there's going to be a good trio of quarterbacks around in the second round or later. I'm not sure that Mon's going to end up actually falling this far, but this is definitely a pick, if he's there, that I would love to see. He could back up Andy Dalton immediately. He had quite the year in 2020. With the Texas A&M Aggies, 2,282 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. In the 2 previous years, he threw for 20 and 24 touchdowns as well, with a couple of more interceptions, but we've seen him refine his game. Still quite the raw prospect. But, I like what he's able to do. He's someone who can spread the ball around throughout the offense. I think he has some pretty good accuracy on his short, intermediate, as well as deep ball. We can see him run outside the pocket. Not essentially a scrambler, but someone who can use his legs to his advantage. So I think if Kellen Mond slips to round 3, that would be a great pick. It's someone that can put some pressure on Andy Dalton, hopefully immediately. It's definitely a wild card. Same goes for David Mills. I've seen the most out of Kyle Trask, if I'm being completely honest, but it's probably because I watched a lot of Florida because of how much he was playing in 2020. So, you know what? If the Bears don't go for a quarterback early, I think if someone falls, they really might go for a quarterback early. But if they don't, if they wait and address other needs, I think Kellen Mond could be a great pick in the 3rd round. So that's what I went with here. Parth, passing it back to you in the 4th round, I believe. Did you trade this pick away? I believe you did trade this pick away.
Yeah, I did trade this pick away.
Yeah, so this is pick 204 for you, but we'll just keep going pick by pick. So you've got 204 here. You once again decided to address the offensive line and went with a center out of Stanford. So talk to us a little bit about Drew Dahlman.
Yeah, Drew Dahlman out of Stanford. Do the Bears have a gem in Sam Mustipher? I really like Sam Mustipher. Back in the right guard position with Alex Bars, I think he's at right guard now. I think could still be improved. I have nothing against Alex Bars, but just to have a little bit of competition with him there.
Bears will get James Daniels back at the start of the season and have Whitehair as well. But I feel like adding depth to the offensive line is never a bad idea, especially for the Bears. They haven't had the best offensive line in the past, or the best offensive lines, shall I say. But we've seen some interesting players come from these later rounds and undrafted free agents and such that the Bears were able to hit on. We saw Arlington Hambright play all right last year. Same with Alex Bars. Obviously, we talked about Mustipher. Say what you want about him now, but Charles Leno was great at the end of the year in 2020. Yeah. And he's also made a Pro Bowl and has had some solid time in Chicago. So I think adding depth to the line is probably a good idea.
Exactly, and he allowed no sacks this year, and he played a lot of snaps, about 500 snaps. Only allowed 5 hurries. The dude's got talent. I think it'd be a steal just getting another dude like him in the 5th round, if anything.
All right. Well, that was pick 204 for you. I'm going to jump back here and go to my 164 because I didn't do any trades in this one. Yeah. I've got James Wiggins. He's a safety out of Cincinnati. I watched a lot of Cincinnati football this year because I've got a good buddy who's actually one of their wide receivers. So that's an interesting one for sure. But, Wiggins is someone who can play wherever you want him to. I saw him play at free safety a lot this year. I also saw him jump down into the box. Once again, I think this would just be another good depth addition for the Bears to make. He's someone who can probably back up Deion Bush eventually. I'm not sure how much longer Tashawn Gibson's going to stick around. This pick probably would have made a little bit more sense if the Bears didn't re-sign Gibson, but I did this draft a couple of weeks ago and was just sitting on it because I liked it. But Wiggins is someone who can come in similar to Deion Bush, sit and wait his turn, hopefully be able to provide some good backup play because the Bears definitely need that. I think right now the safety rooms like Tashawn Gibson, Eddie Jackson, and DHC. So I think he could come in and gain some valuable experience behind guys like Eddie Jackson. And I think that would definitely be a good pick down the road. Otherwise, I probably would have addressed the offensive line again. But Parth, passing it back to you now. You have your next pick, I believe, at 208. I'm not sure if we're on the same pick. But once again, the third pick in a row, you're addressing the offensive line here. You went guard, center, and now you're going tackle. So talk to us a little bit about this Big Ten prospect.
Yeah, Big Ten prospect. Cole Van Lanen out of Wisconsin, 6'5", 312, a senior. Only allowed a sack all year, 2 hurries. Wisconsin usually produces some good offensive line talent. Usually one of the best in the Big Ten at that. Played all his snaps at left tackle. The Bears do have a need at the tackle position. I think he could be a starter, if anything. He's really talented. It is a late round pick, but if the Bears can hit on this, it'd be really well. His best game all year was against Indiana, and Indiana had one of the best defenses in the country. So that's something just to think about, and I think it could be a really good hit for Ryan Pace in the late round.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Just pile on the offensive line, my man.
Exactly.
This is an interesting one because I didn't know what to do here when we got to the later rounds. There's a player I'm eyeing that I'm going to talk about next with my last pick. By the way, we aren't doing all 7 rounds. I believe we did 5 or 6 just to get you guys most of the main stuff. But, when I look at what the Bears did in 2020 in the draft, something that stands out to me is Travis Gibson because the Bears traded up for him. They wanted him to go get him. He was inactive for a lot of games. When he wasn't inactive, I think he didn't do that much. So I think it would be interesting to see if the Bears went for another edge, outside linebacker type player. And someone that stood out to me when I watched him this year was Shakatoni out of Penn State. This is an interesting one. He's 6'3", 252 pounds. He's pretty sleek. I like how he can get around on the outside. He's a pretty speedy guy. Doesn't really use power moves, more so speed moves to get around. Obviously, whoever's playing offensive line, and it's an interesting one because I think, and same thing goes for Travis Gibson. If you put these edge rushers behind guys like Khalil Mack, behind guys like Bilal Nichols, behind guys like Eddie Goldman, behind guys like Akeem Hicks, all these beasts on the offensive line, I think we can continue to see the Bears, even without Jay Rodgers in Chicago anymore, develop good defensive linemen. I'm not saying Gibson was essentially a miss. I do like Tony, though. 21 tackles, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble in 2020. Had a pretty solid senior season after having some subpar seasons earlier on. So I think in terms of late rounds, you've got nothing to lose here. Tony's an interesting prospect who I think has a lot of potential, a lot of raw talent. So I went with this one here. And let's head into our last round, Parth. We've got 2 more picks to go. You went with a cornerback here. Obviously, that's, and I didn't even mention it earlier, probably a pressing need. Mm-hmm. I have a decent level of trust in Kindle Vildor. I know Jaylen Johnson's going to have to step up, and he'll continue to thrive in his role as long as he can stay healthy. But obviously, it seems like the Bears' starting cornerbacks right now are going to be Jaylen Johnson, Kindle Vildor, and Duke Shelley. We saw good play out of all 3 of them in 2020. Oh, excuse me, Desmond Trufant as well.
Yeah.
But still, there's a hole there. So
there's definitely a hole there. There's definitely a need. Yeah. I don't really like what the depth is looking like there. There's a lot of needs when we come.
Trufant's also someone who's gotten injured a lot throughout his career.
Injured a lot. A lot of Detroit fans don't really like him. I mean, they hyped him up coming into the year, and they saw his play. I wasn't too impressed with him. Obviously, I thought the Bears were able to torch that team pretty easily, and Trufant was a part of that. I know he had an injury issue all year as well, so that sucks for him. So especially need some depth. I drafted Zach McPherson out of Texas Tech, a Big 12 school. He allowed 3 touchdowns all year, had 4 interceptions, and a passer rating of 72.5. So, pretty good player. I think it'd be a pretty good pick in the 6th round. He's only 5'11", which is a little concern. But I think just having depth there helps. The Bears do have some pretty short corners, though, with Vildor and Shelley already in place. So it kind of sucks bringing in another short dude. But hopefully, you can't really do anything about it but get corners at this point and try to pile them up, and hopefully they play well. And he could also be a good special teams asset, too. So,
yeah, definitely the Bears have had some pretty good special teams picks throughout their time. Getting some interesting players. Kevin Pierre-Louis, they brought in Marcavius Mingo last year. So all the help on special teams is definitely needed, especially with someone like Cordero Patterson being gone now, as he was a complete gem last year. So that could be an interesting pick. You got to remember, a lot of these late round guys are going to be fighting for the practice squad, fighting to get a roster spot, fighting to be active on game days. So later down the road, it gets a little bit tougher to make these picks. But this is my pick of the draft. This is someone I've hammered home for quite some time, and I've got to be a homer here. Amir Smith-Marset, wide receiver out of Iowa. If you guys don't know, I'm a huge Hawkeye fan. I've seen this guy play ever since 2017 up in Iowa City, and he's someone who I think could be the next Antonio Brown, someone who's drafted really late, and ends up making Pro Bowl teams, ends up being an All-Pro. He's got so much raw athleticism that I think he could develop really nicely in the NFL, especially in Chicago. He's someone who can go get the ball wherever you put it. He's also pretty speedy. Catch radius is great. The only issue with him, which is what concerns me in terms of the Bears picking him or not, if he's on the board by now, when the draft does roll around later this week, is his discipline. He's had a little bit of some issues at the University of Iowa, just in terms of doing some not so great stuff that doesn't need to be mentioned. But, I think Smith-Marset would be great. 25 receptions, 345 yards, 4 touchdowns in 2020 for the Hawkeyes. Also 722 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns in 2019, 16.4 yards per catch. He's averaged 15.7 or 13.8 yards per catch or better in each of his last 3 seasons. He's a big play receiver, and I think he could develop greatly in the pros. So this would be my steal of the draft, if I'm being honest. I'm also a little bit biased, but Amir Smith-Marset would definitely be a good one. Guys,
I don't like that Rondale Moore pick, though. I'm going to be honest. Go Hoosiers, baby.
I got to be honest. Parth, I'm sure you can agree with me. It feels so good to be back. I love it. Pumping out draft content the rest of the week. Once we get out of school, I know we're going to start posting each and every day again, like you guys are used to us doing, but it feels good being back and being able to get out some draft content. So we're definitely going to be putting out some stuff this week, some wide receivers, some quarterbacks, some other positions as well. We've got a lot coming for you guys, a lot planned, and I know we've said we're going to post consistently in the past, but just hope for us. Stuff happens some days. We aren't able to get stuff done, but whenever we can get a video out to you guys, whether that be tomorrow, whether that be in a week and a half, depending on our schedules, we will definitely get you guys content. So be sure to drop a like if you're listening on YouTube and subscribe whatever platform you're listening on, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And we're going to get you guys draft coverage throughout this week, as well as probably a live stream for the 2021 NFL Draft on Thursday night. That was a lot of fun last year, and we definitely want to repeat that this year. So be sure to be on the lookout for more details about that. Might do a giveaway, might get some of you guys in on the call to talk about the picks. So we definitely want to do that. Again, it's been a lot of fun doing that in the past. If you would like more content from us, head over to our website, beardown.com. We're posting columns, articles, and blogs, trying to get back into a groove there as well. The website's been really inconsistent all off season, but trying to get you guys some draft content before obviously Thursday night. So be sure to head over to our website later this week. I'm sure we're going to have some stuff up for you guys. If you would like to find the podcast on Instagram and Twitter, you can go to @BearDown on both platforms. That's where you can see special guests we're having on. I'm sure we'll probably have a guest on this week to discuss the NFL draft. You can also enter our giveaways. We try and do a couple of giveaways a year to give back to you guys. We try and give away some pretty sweet stuff. And also you can give us advice on what you want to see. It's a great way to interact with us, so be sure to go check out our social media. And finally, I'm going to throw the link in our bio, or the link is down below to our social media pages as well, myself as well as Parth, our Instagram and Twitter pages. Once again, another great way to interact with us, as well as to see our thoughts on all Chicago sports and all of the National Football League. So be sure to go follow us on social media. That would be greatly appreciated. Parth Shaw, feels good to be back. Feels good to record a video for 20 plus minutes. It feels like it's been forever. But I'm just being honest. It feels real good. And I hope we can start doing this consistently. Obviously, we're both in college and most of our staff's in college. So there's a lot of conflicting schedules. But any last words before we close this one out?
Yeah, exactly. I wish we could all record. I want to get recording with you and Zach and Jaylen all at once again, all 4 of us. Hopefully we can do the last round during the draft. I think that'd be a really fun idea. And, just watching the White Sox right now. They're having a great game. It's been fun to watch them the last couple of days. And the Cubs also have been scoring some runs. I'm not a big Cubs fan, but I'll give them some credit where credit's due. So they're putting, Chris Bryant and Baez putting some big numbers up on the north side.
Yeah, baseball is going pretty well in Chicago, I'd say right now. I think both teams performing a little bit under expectations. But hanging in there and competing. It's tough to watch Chicago sports right now. Teams are so inconsistent, and the Bears are probably going to be the exact same way. But I'm excited to have them back and finally get grooving again. I mean, half the reason we haven't been posting a ton is just there's been nothing going on with the Bears other than a little bit of stuff from free agency. But the obvious big thing from that was obviously Andy Dalton. So we're excited to be covering the draft once again for you guys. It should be a really good one. We always have fun doing this, and we're real excited to live stream it for you guys. So be sure to join. I know you guys liked our live streams during the season, but guys, it's been a pleasure to be your host once again. My name is Chris Malpe, and Bears fans, as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.